I'm going to share a story with you that I feel very passionate about. And it's the story of a quest for freedom. So many of us today feel a lack of freedom in our lives, an overriding sense of anxiety, of hopelessness. How can we affect change in our own families, in our neighborhoods, in our communities? How can we strive for justice and for the sustainability of our world? The Sanctuary for Independent Media is an experiment in North Troy, New York, where we are asking that question. And over the past 10 years, hundreds and thousands of people actually have come together collectively to try to practice the quest of freedom on an individual level and on a collective level to make change in their community. It's all about framing your story and sharing it with the world. It's all about figuring out what is our own point of view in this increasingly homogenized world of mass media and information barrage. What is the story we want to tell?
I realized that if I were to wear a suit every day and be in an office for 30 years of my life, I would regret it. The sanctuary helps me become the person I always wanted to be.
That's Nick. I couldn't share all the stories of all the people who come to the sanctuary. Each one is a TED Talk. But Nick is a SUNY Albany football player who was a media major with no media experience because all he did was play football. And he came and did an internship at the sanctuary where he wanted to develop a portfolio that would let him move out into the world. And he worked with us in the spring, and then we hired him in the summer to work with our youth in our Uptown Summer Program. And last week he just left and got a job back in his hometown in Boston, and he is making movies for museums. This is Mylan, who is searching through the streets of North Troy to investigate the history of our neighborhood. This is a project we were doing this summer called Echoes from Lock 1 that looks at the history of the Erie Canal and weaves the legacy today of people growing up along its shores. These are all the youth who worked this summer. It's part of the Rensselaer County Summer Youth Employment Program, so it's an economic development program where youth learned media production skills, how to create stories, how to have their own voice, and also environmental sustainability skills, how to be urban gardeners, how to help improve their community. And this is a group of artists, scientists, educators, and teens coming together to try to make positive change in North Troy and in their community. They made this map. This is Census Tract 404, which is one of the poorest census tracts in the capital region. And we've taken our inspiration from Detroit, in a way, places like Schenectady that are left when capitalism leaves, and there are the ruins. What can the people in our communities do to work from the grassroots up to make change? They made this map, and you can see the star to the right. That's the sanctuary. And we're just really only a couple hundred feet away from Lock 1 on the Erie Canal. It's hidden behind barbed wire and fences, so most people don't even know the history is there. But this once incredibly vibrant, rich resource that really made the Industrial Revolution now is a place with really very little hope. We discovered and researched this place, and you can see to the right Umawat's Castle. That was one of our most exciting discoveries. Just a couple hundred feet from the sanctuary was a Native American burial ground where actually their sacred site had been violated and artifacts stolen, which now are trying to be repatriated to the community. But in each place we went, the youth told a story. This is just a few hundred feet from the Native American burial ground and from the sanctuary. It's an abandoned lot. Once was a great church. There were 3 churches on that corner, and now there was just rubble and garbage. And so we pulled out an impromptu stage and started Freedom Square. This is the Debo Band, Ethiopian music. Then we went and really imagined the impossible. We applied to the National Endowment of Art for a creative placemaking grant, and said we're going to bring music and culture out into the community, take it out of the walls of the sanctuary and into the streets. We invited Isaiah Zagar, who was a 78-year-old artist from Philadelphia. He's called an outsider artist because rather than making work for the museum, he makes work to live in the streets. And his Magic Gardens, which is a nonprofit spot in Philadelphia, actually has transformed that area into mosaics and color and beauty, and really was an economic revitalization item or tool for Philadelphia. So really an example of the art of cultural animation. We created a workshop. We do a lot around arts and education, and workshops are key. Passing the information to other people so that they become active producers of their own knowledge, of their own stories, of their own creative visions. So in this case, hundreds of people worked for several months before Zagar came and created their messages through art in small tiles, the most primitive of media, mud, to express their ideas. And then they came hundreds of people, and within 2 days, we built Freedom Square. And here is, then we leveraged that to get another project called From Food Desert to Food Forest. And we are now planting, in this picture, planting trees, fruit trees, which now 3 years later are blooming, and there's food all over the block. And then came the music. This is the Festival of the Desert from Mali, playing in North Troy. And this is the people in North Troy exchanging their creative practice with our Malian fellow artists. This is faith dancing from United Ordained Church in Troy. I want to share with you a little of the sounds and flavors of Story Harvest and Freedom Square. So I'm going to play this for you. And when we're at Freedom Square, I'm always struck by the extraordinary diversity there. People of all economic, socioeconomic status, of all races, of all ages, coming together with a common joy of making their community better. This is a peace poll that was given by the ARC Charter School to Freedom Square. There they buried some of the ashes of Miss Tara, who was a beloved teacher of the school. Right now, this summer, we worked with 2 students of Miss Tara's who told her story and recorded it and put it into scrapbooks as well, and put it on our low-power FM radio station, WOOC, sharing the story. And I want to share a little smaller story with you about Miss Tara. As I was helping them bury her ashes, I realized that she was actually a student of mine at RPI. A student who had come in as an engineer, had taken my art community technology class, which stands for ACT, and went into this school and fell in love with the kids in this neighborhood and made a change and committed to working in this school and followed her own vision and voice. So, I mean, this is a place where we're actually looking together to seek that inner voice within us, to connect with our ethical and our ethical desires and our passion to help make the world a better place. So I'll dedicate this speech to Miss Tara and her influence on us all. This is another example, and I'm giving you examples of places that were in ruins in which we tried to transform into active spaces. And we're very, very interested in the power of infrastructure. That it's not only bringing people together, and, which is incredibly important, each event, each workshop, each performance, but creating place where people can continue to have freedom. To come together in the quest of freedom. So this is in the middle of the block. I mean, basically at this point we have 8 lots on one block. And these were all abandoned, 8 lots or buildings. These were all abandoned spaces on one block in North Troy, which of course I know is much like Schenectady, where you're plagued by so many abandoned buildings. This was done by artist Branda Keneally, with the SpongeBob character. She's followed young people from birth through their lives, and you're going to see that soon. People immediately started to do projects like composting, DIY snack shops with nutritious foods, biochar workshops, doing science, bringing science into the community. People from all over, different youth groups, college groups, community volunteers came together to help create a hoop house. This is now an aquaponic project, and with all kinds of science demonstrations in it. That's behind there is a carriage house, which is our environmental education research center. And again, celebrating the riches within our community and using our place and our infrastructure to feature the riches in our community. This is Sheila, who learned how to make collard greens from her grandmother. And these are collards that came out of that garden that she's cooking for an event like the Freedom Square event that I shared with you. Chickens, connecting with nature. A lot of the young people who come around our neighborhood are afraid of a fly or a spider. These guys became fearless beekeepers with their arms deep into the hives. And then they spun the honey and made their own designs for the jars and shared it with the community. And again, of course, telling the story. Here they're recording a radio story on the sweetness of a peach and how it will go into a pie that will bring the community together. The joy of working from seed to table and bringing community together. And then they played this on WOOC, our radio station. A third example, still on one block. This is an abandoned building, really beautiful. This is the Guerrilla Gallery project, where our young people tried to put positive representations of people living in the community onto the boarded up windows of all the abandoned buildings in the area. This is Jesse, who lived in this, grew up in this house, was forced out by absentee landlords. This is the living room after it was abandoned. And here it is now. So it is now a gallery, an artist residency spot for Nature Lab. Our program, it stands for North Troy Art, Technology, and Urban Research and Ecology. This is our artist resident, Branda Keneally. And this is called the North Troy People's History Project. So these young people are in the project. Actually, the one on the right, Tony, is in his birth, is one of the photos. We've watched him grow up in here, and it is celebrating the people living in North Troy and looking all the way back with a timeline to the dinosaurs, and again, weaving their legacy into our history. This was an amazing show as far as a magnet for bringing people together to create dialogue and understanding. This is a policeman who could not get out. He was there all day long reading their scrapbooks, listening to their videos, talking with them, connecting with social workers, with community organizers, with medical experts, and talking to the youth to try to understand what plagues youth growing up in such an economically disadvantaged neighborhood as North Troy. And this is the Story Candles project, also by Branda Keneally, our artist resident, that was outside of the building, in which she is telling the much the very important story that usually remains untold of young people's lives who ended too soon. Our youth are taking their quest for knowledge and truth in science and environmental justice out into the community. We're going to the Hudson River, which is, of course, their neighborhood shores, is so toxic, and examining the fate on the toxic water of the fish. They're also testing. This summer we tested for antibiotic-resistant organisms, microplastics in the water, becoming citizen scientists in their own community. In conclusion, it's all about planting seeds. Planting seeds of collaboration. I'm an editor. Before I was a professor, I was an editor, and I just have to say it's very strange that I'm doing a TED Talk, because in 1984, when TED started, I was their editor in Hollywood. Isn't that strange? But really, editing is about being conscious of creating and constructing messages and then designing them to move people to action, right? And so it's been my great honor to work with the youth in the community and pass on my skills. All the decision-making at that table is theirs. Planting seeds to cross lines of difference. This is Mylan again. He's interviewing the mayor of Troy. Planting seeds to honor immigrants. This is, and people who come from different walks of life. These are young people who just moved to Albany from Iraq, telling their story with painting. Planting seeds to understand the magic of all of our abilities. This is the Seeing with Photography Collective, and they are blind and sight impaired and use light to create photographs. Planting seeds to stand up for our freedom of expression. Planting seeds to network diverse organizations with diverse needs, to network communities to make our world a better place. In this case, this is the Bread and Puppet parade throughout North Troy, where we're collaborating with alternative transportation organizations, health and nutrition groups, and other urban development organizers. What is art but the ability to connect to our soul? What is the power of voice? The voice can change our world. We can shift negative representations to positive ones. This is also Brenda Ann Keneally in a residence with the Upstate Girls. And that is Tony on the right, much younger at the time. And each of them are in front of their photo, older.
If you could change that, if that could be changed, the perspective, people's perspective, the way they see life and the way these children see life, I think things will really, really change.
That was Jerry. He's our neighborhood ambassador. We have several neighborhood ambassadors. We actually developed that as a model project, bringing, it's almost a performative way to connect with our art, with the people who really live in our neighborhood. And the neighborhood ambassadors was used actually in Breathing Lights last year. So it happened, there were neighborhood ambassadors in Schenectady too. But what it's really about is coming together in a sea of hope. These are sturgeons, and actually I'm wearing a sturgeon, my T-shirt. It's kind of our emblem of resistance, of strength. The sturgeon who swim in the northern tip of they spawn in the northern tip of the estuary, right of the Hudson River estuary, right by the sanctuary. They were almost extinct, and they are coming back, strong, powerful, beautiful. This is Uncle Mac, another neighborhood ambassador. We have a holiday celebration every December. I invite all of you. There's free portraits for everyone in the community. But Uncle Mac, his wisdom and what he says to us is, it's not about the me. It's about the we. And as I said, every one of these could be a story that's incredible. Everyone comes from a totally different and diverse walk of life, coming together to effect change in one hyper-local spot. And with that, I pass the torch to you. Open up to your creativity. Many of you are. Many of you maybe aren't. But with your own vision, with your stories, with your creativity, you can make a difference in this world and hopefully make a change.